Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a paper that offers a pretty radical new way to look at addiction. It's an idea that shifts the whole conversation away from just personal failure and towards a much, much bigger picture, a cosmic conflict.
For a lot of people, that's kind of the default setting, isn't it? We tend to see addiction as, a problem of willpower, bad choices, a habit that you could break if you just tried hard enough. But what if that whole frame is just way too small to see what's really going on?
So the paper we're digging into today says, hold on a second, we need a huge shift in how we think about this. It's arguing we should move away from what it calls a theologically thin moral model to something much bigger, something cosmic. So you go from seeing it as a moral failure or just a bad habit to seeing it as a kind of cosmic captivity. We're not just talking about a habit to break, but a person who needs to be liberated.
All right, so let's get into this new frame. But to really understand it, we first have to see why the paper thinks the old way of looking at it just doesn't work. The argument is basically this. When we only focus on choices and discipline, it's like we're treating the cough, but totally ignoring the pneumonia. We're looking at the symptoms, sure, but we're misdiagnosing the actual disease. The paper says there's a deep spiritual bondage happening, and the behaviors we see, they're just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, to really build this new frame, we've got to start with a huge biblical idea. It's called the imago Dei, which is just Latin for the image of God. And according to this paper, this concept is what's truly on the line when it comes to addiction.
And this part is so important. The paper makes it clear, being made in God's image isn't about something you have, like a soul. It's about a job you do. It's a functional, even a royal, job description for all of humanity, men and women. We were made to be God's representatives on earth, extending His good rule.
So if that's our job, then addiction, in this view, is a de-imaging process. It's like a hostile takeover in 3 stages. It targets that royal job, it colonizes your ability to act, and it ultimately just diminishes your ability to reflect that image.
Yeah, this is really the core of it. The person gets hijacked, ruled by something completely different. As the paper puts it, the very faculties through which the imago Dei expresses itself, will, reason, relationship, creativity, agency, are progressively colonized by the addiction. I mean, think about that. All the tools you were given to do your job, your will, your mind, your relationships, they all get taken over.
Okay, so this whole de-imaging thing, this hostile takeover, it doesn't just happen out of nowhere. The paper argues that it takes place on a battlefield, a world that is already under siege.
And to get what this battlefield looks like, we have to understand something scholars call the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Now stick with me here. This is basically an ancient way of seeing the world that was fundamental for the biblical writers. It sees all of human history as one big cosmic conflict, with a kind of spiritual geography where rebellious powers are running chunks of the world and creating these environments of bondage.
So this map kind of lays it all out. You've got the nations which were put under the care of these lesser divine beings or sons of God who went rogue and became corrupt. And then you have Israel, which God himself claims as his own special portion. It's like his beachhead for taking back the world. The point is, addiction isn't just a random event. It often sprouts in the toxic soil cultivated by these hostile powers.
Now, I want to be super clear here, because this is a huge point in the paper. This worldview doesn't get anyone off the hook. It doesn't erase personal responsibility. What it does is place our choices inside a much bigger, much more intense spiritual conflict. So the conversation shifts. It's not about shaming someone for a moral failure. It's about helping liberate a captive from a war zone.
So if the problem is cosmic-level captivity, it makes sense that the solution has to be a cosmic-level liberation, right? And the paper argues the Bible gives us the perfect blueprint for what that rescue looks like.
Let's take the Exodus story. We all kind of know it, right? But the paper asks us to look at it through this new lens. It wasn't just about freeing slaves or a fight for social justice. It was a divine D-Day, a rescue mission into enemy territory to reclaim God's people from the grip of these hostile spiritual powers.
And get this, the 10 plagues weren't just random acts of destruction. Each one was a precision strike aimed at a specific Egyptian god. The quote says it was a cosmic polemic. It was Yahweh basically walking into the enemy's headquarters and systematically dismantling their command structure, showing everyone who was really in charge.
And this whole pattern of divine rescue, this Exodus, is all pointing towards something even bigger. The paper connects it directly to the gospel, arguing that the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus is the ultimate new Exodus. It's God's final, definitive rescue mission for all of humanity. You can even see this framework in stories you think you know, like the parable of the prodigal son. In this view, when the son goes to a far country, it's not just a moral metaphor. He's literally crossing into enemy territory, a place where his identity, his royal status as a son, is stripped away and he's left with nothing.
But look at what the father does. This is amazing. He doesn't wait at the border. He doesn't say, clean yourself up and then we'll talk. No, he runs out to meet his son while he's still deep in enemy territory. And the robe, the ring, the sandals, those aren't just welcome home gifts. They are public declarations that this son's royal status is fully restored. It's a proactive, public reclamation.
Okay, so this is all really fascinating theology, but what does it actually mean for someone in recovery today? Well, it changes everything. It completely reframes the goal.
Instead of seeing yourself as a moral failure, constantly wrestling with shame, you're reframed as a soldier on a very real contested front line. It's not about shame anymore, it's about courageous spiritual combat. You're holding ground that's already been won for you, but you're doing it in hostile territory.
And that famous armor of God passage from Ephesians, it stops being a nice little metaphor and becomes your actual practical toolkit. This is the gear you need to stand your ground every single day when you're facing real opposition.
And this is so important. This isn't a fight you're meant to do alone. In this model, God doesn't just save people from something, He saves them into something, into a community. Recovery absolutely requires being part of a unit, a team that fights together, because going it alone is a losing strategy.
So when you put it all together, you see this huge shift in what recovery is even for. The common goal is sobriety, right? Just stop the behavior. But the cosmic goal, well, that's something so much bigger. The paper calls it reimaging.
And that really is the powerful thought to end on. What if the goal of recovery isn't just about what you stop doing, but about who you are becoming? What if it's about a full-scale restoration of your original purpose, that royal, image-bearing job of representing God's goodness in the world? That changes the whole game.